Is the Joel Embiid extension worth it? How has Russell Westbrook fit in with his new teammates? Should NFL athletes take a knee? The only question left is, say it with me, you win. Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown Podcast. As always, or normally as we plan it on Wednesdays, I've got with me James Hollis, a.k.a. at Snotty Drippin' on Twitter. James, it's been a little while, but I'm glad that you're here with me.
Yeah, we're not fooled by your as always stuff. You've been blowing me off since last couple weeks.
If I must, I will show you the screenshot of a DM that says, "Can we record tonight?" from last week, and crickets from James.
That's fake news.
Fake news. Sad. Okay. Well, let's get into the real news then, because we have some, I believe. Which is Joel Embiid signing an extension. The Sixers are taking a dip in the pool. They're not even putting their toe in. They're jumping in the deep end here. What's your immediate reaction?
Nah, the Sixers ran right from outside through the house wearing full snow gear right out the back door and just did a cannonball into the pool.
After eating a big dinner.
I mean, yeah, it's 5 minutes after eating. So this is the thing, and I'm sorry, listeners, because I know we all know it. 31 games, awesome when he played. Ended last season on the injury. You would have thought that, Philly would have at least kind of haggled a little bit. The Steph Curry thing, where because of injury concerns, they would try to get him at a hometown discount. But I mean, they could have waited till next summer when he was a restricted free agent, and just matched any offer, or again try to give him at a discount. But nope, they just went all in, and Embiid's getting the max, 5 years, 148, and from what I understand, there's a lot of what's what I'm looking for, Coach?
Incentives.
He reached the incentives. It could be like 178, and from what I guess what I heard, Coach, is that there's also some language in the new deal that if he does have like a bad injury again, they get some kind of salary cap relief. Okay. I'm not sure how true that is, but yeah, that's the word. So, but at the same time, you know what, Coach? They ran this process for 3 or 4 years. This is a big deal. He represents basically hope for the franchise. And I know it sounds hokey, and I know it's crazy to spend money on hope, but I mean, I guess sink or swim. They just said we're all in. We started this process. We're going to see it to the end. So. It's a bold risk. Maybe they know somebody's medical that we don't, but hey, there we are.
Yeah, I like to prefer to think of guys as they're going to be healthy. It's really tough for me to get to the point where we're going to assume he's going to get hurt, even though there's a lot of evidence to the fact. One of those years, though, I mean, they really babied him, and he probably would have been able to play X amount of games if they weren't tanking. So I feel like this whole 31 games thing is a little bit skewed, right? Like he could have played in one of those other seasons, but you're right. But either way, but the other thing you said, the little nugget there was that he is amazing when he's in. He is all NBA when he plays, and so I think I agree with you though. They probably could have gotten a bit of a discount, even if they have an incentive laden that will cover them. Because remember, those incentives are also basically injury, hedging. So I don't know. They certainly have money to do it, and you're right. They need to kind of start to change the perception, start getting all the hearts and minds behind them and part of the process. So I don't know. I think they did okay.
Really? So wow. I'm surprised we're in agreement here.
Oh, really? Okay. So we're both in agreement. We both feel like it was the deal was okay.
I mean, yeah, they have nothing else to spend that money on right now, right? I wouldn't have been shocked if they had tried to give him for less years. I would have been shocked if they tried to, negotiate. All right, give us 2 years at $25 million a year just to see if you're healthy, and then we'll work from there. But they just went all in. So I mean, I'm happy for him. I'm happy for Philly, and like you said, I'm knocking on wood. Let's hope he stays healthy.
Exactly, because they're like must-see TV when he's in, especially because they're throwing out Ben Simmons there now, who looks really good. Have you had a chance to get some eyeballs on him?
I have. I saw him against the Celtics. The guy, I mean, he's every bit the passer, every bit the playmaker that he's been advertised. He's He's scared to shoot, which is kind of worrisome, and he flat out shoots with his wrong hand. Like he's driving hard left and flipping up with his right for some reason. I don't get what's happening. So my one concern is between him and Fultz. The shooting is not where it should be, but it is what it is, right? You roll with the talent you have, and they're young and they have time to improve. So J.J. Redick and Covington and Embiid will provide a lot of spacing. So I'm excited for Embiid to get back on the floor and we see what they really got.
Right, and that's why they're going to be kind of weird. I mean, I know Redick is in a traditional spacing position, but like Embiid isn't necessarily, and they'll have Covington who can shoot a little bit, so they do have some of that. But either way, it's going to be exciting because, I mean, Ben Simmons on the break, running that break, this looks terrific. The thing about the right hand, he's been doing it since college, and I kind of had this breakdown I've been wanting to do, and he keeps, he was injured, he didn't play. But it's very strange. He will corkscrew in any manner to get the right-handed shot off when it shouldn't be, even though he's a lefty. And the consensus that I have come to with a couple other people as well is that he's probably really a righty, and that somebody at some point like sort of made him be a lefty. In fact, I think his father made him be a lefty. And even with his jump shot, he brings it to the right side first, like he'd be a righty shooting it, and then he kind of brings it over to the left quickly to shoot it. It's all screwy, and as a result, I can't imagine him ever being a good shooter from anything outside of 12 or 14 that way. Perhaps it doesn't matter with his passing and his ability to drive.
I mean, we know it matters, right? I mean, so two things. We know it matters, right? You want your best player, your best playmaker with the ball in his hand to be able to be a threat to score with a jump shot. You want that. So it matters. But two, they said the same thing about LeBron for, 5 or 6 years, and finally he became a passable shooter, and now he can, he's a threat to score from anywhere now. So, I mean, maybe it just takes time and reps, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would have said if he was, coming out of high school, let him shoot it righty. Like I would have probably even, into the senior year, I would have said you should try it because I'm sure. Well, I don't have to look at his stats in high school, but I imagine he probably wasn't a great shooter then either. So, it's too late now, but it's too bad. I think it will ultimately, you're right. The one thing that seems to go up across, everyone's careers is shooting. Like guys tend to improve their outside jump shot over time. So yeah, it should improve anyway just by reps. But again, I can't imagine him ever being better than just a little bit below average from three, for instance. 33, 34%, which might be just enough if they have enough other players. But I love the way he plays, and he can get into the lane. He's strong, and he can facilitate. And even if they want to sag off, that gives him a little bit head of steam to get going, and he can see over the defense. So, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and see if he can't make it work.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think especially in the short term, right, when the team went from having, almost no talent around Embiid to having two guys with such high upside, it's going to be better, But nothing's perfect. No player is perfect. And if this is his thing for a while, he can't shoot, I think they'll figure it out eventually where, at least he gets a set jumper, he gets, the corner three, something.
Yeah.
Because he's too talented. He's such a great athlete. He's so talented. So, but yeah, man, back to this is what Philly, they're ready to move forward and start, making some gains and moves. Are they making the playoffs this year?
I mean, I had said on Twitter that Embiid would have to play, I think I said 70 games, but that's too high. I think if he plays in 60 games, I think they make it.
That's oof. Well, see, my problem was I watched them against Boston the other night. I don't know if you caught that.
I did.
And without Embiid, Boston just played they're playing their big three. Their starting five basically sat, and they still just kind of ran Philly off the court. You know what I mean? So that's I know it's preseason and doesn't really matter. We know Simmons and Fultz will get together and they'll get more time together on the floor, and talent kind of makes things different. But without that backline defense of Embiid, they're not that good. I don't think so.
Right.
If he misses literally a quarter of the season, I'm not sure, man. But it is the East, and
right.
The bottom of the East is pretty bad stuff.
Well, the way I see it is, okay, if he plays in 60 games, I think that they probably win a little bit more than 30 of those. So let's just pretend that they win 34 of the 60. They probably only need another 7, right, to get into the playoffs.
To make a playoff?
So okay. They only have to go 7 and the last 22 games, 7 and 15. So I don't know. That's where I was kind of coming from. But you're right. But then again, asking him to play 60 games is twice as many as he's ever played before, and that's another thing. But he is that good. I feel like he could do it for them. But we'll see. I might be too high on my of the 60 games, how many they win. And that might throw everything off. But and again, they'll lose the Celtics on most of those games anyway, right? Because the Celtics are just better and the Cavs are better. So we're talking about getting to the 8th seed. I think they have a shot.
So let me ask you this, Coach. When healthy, where do you rank Embiid? Let's say we get 65, 70 games of Embiid. Is there any center you take over him?
Oh, it's a really good question. Wow. And he is who he was from last year? I mean, I don't think so. I think I would take him over anybody.
All right. You say you can play him 25, they only play him 28 minutes a game, 30. They cap at 30, and he averages 23 and 9 and 2.5 blocks a game. He's just like he was last year.
Yeah. No, I can't. I mean, who are the other candidates? I guess there's like Jokic is up there, maybe. Carl Anthony Towns, I suppose. We got to kind of figure out if they're all playing the same position or not. But I like Embiid as good as any of those guys, any of the younger guys, and then I can't even really picture all the older guys who are at that center position who I'm liking anyway. So yeah, you got to take him, right?
That's what I say too. I was listening to other podcasts today, and someone said that I don't get it. They were like, I'd put him up there with Cat and Embiid. I mean, Cat and Jokic and maybe Marc Gasol. And I'm listening, thinking, did they not watch this guy last year?
Right. I don't know. Maybe DeMarcus Cousins is up there.
Is he?
I mean, the production is there for the most part, and you see the talent, and he can do stuff. I wouldn't want him on my team, and I think there's a whole chemistry issue, but we have to kind of figure out what we want to talk about. But again, Embiid though, for the chemistry as well, is so much more of a better teammate than someone like DeMarcus Cousins. So yeah, I really think it's a no-brainer for me, and it sounds like we can't argue on that one, unfortunately, because it's always better when we argue.
I mean, we can talk something about Russ if you want. I'm ready to fight about that.
All right. We can talk about OKC. You and I were watching Denver just now, the first half, and here let's fight about this. Russ actually looked really, really good and was giving the ball up early and getting people facilitated and hitting the roll man. And guess what? Doing that more than he normally did, he gets 18 points in the half and 6 or 7 assists. Maybe I don't know how many assists he had in the first half, but he was amazing. He was better than anything he had. He was almost better with those numbers than he was last year already. I know it's a preseason game and it's all whatever, but if this is how he's going to play, man, then I can get behind it.
And see, we're not even going to argue about that though. I'm not going to argue with you because
I know.
He was awesome last year, and it was by design. He dominated the ball. With these two guys he has now, Paul George and Carmelo, he can't do that. He has to make sure he gives up the ball and shares and gets those guys involved, or else he'll be by himself again next year or in the next couple of years, right? So.
Okay. You can argue though that with KD and that better team, he didn't quite. I mean, it's a little bit different when you say when you're watching even the first half of tonight, and it's also a function of the offense. The offense is different. There's a little bit more movement than there was when Scott Brooks was still there and KD was still there. So there's something to that as well. I think.
Yes, I've long said that Scott Brooks was the best and worst thing for him and for KD and Russ. Because he let them be themselves, which is really cool, but by not giving them more structure and not holding them more accountable to their teammates, when they became who they were, you can't ask them to change. You can't just say, okay, you've been doing this, now do something else. That's just not how it works. And so it was a blessing and a curse because we got the best of Russ and we got the worst of Russ because Russ, I think, would have benefited from just a little more discipline when he was a younger player, right?
Yeah.
A coach to kind of form him a little more instead of saying, all right, hey, he's great, let him run wild. And if we know Russ didn't run wild, he honed his game, but he didn't hone it within a team structure that made a little more sense than Russ, your turn, Katie, your turn. So, I'm not even going to disagree with you. When he's under control and getting guys in positions and scoring, then he just kind of picks his spots, that's the best form of Russell Westbrook.
I agree. And you know what? Looking at this, I know it's Denver, and I keep saying that Denver is going to be really good. And all Mike Malone has to figure out is which 5-man units to play with each other. I think that's always been the hardest thing for any coach when they're coming in and trying to get the alchemy going with their teams. Once he can figure that out, they'll take off, I think, for sure. And again, they were hanging tough with OKC too, again, when he found the right lineups. So, but, you watch what OKC is doing, and they miss a ton of open shots. Like, Olympic Melo was all over this game, bricking up the threes. But they were threes that were open off of some sort of pick and roll by Russ, who then would hit the roll man, who would then kick it to Paul George in the corner, who then fired it over to Melo for like just a catch and shoot shot. Like, that's going to have to be pretty scary for the rest of the Western Conference if we're going to get Olympic Melo, because I know he's playing in the Mile High. That's the other thing. It's weird for all those guys, I'm sure. But you get him back into the comfort zone, and he's making 50% of those shots from three when they're like that.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's funny to me how many people wrote off Carmelo Anthony going to OKC. Sure, he's not the same guy he was in 2008, 2009, 2010 when he was, he can just give you 28 a night kind of easily.
Right.
But when you play with Russell Westbrook and Paul George, he didn't have to be. That's the great thing about it, right? So I'm really high on OKC Thunder, and it's weird, though, because no matter how high we are on the Nuggets and the Thunder and the Houston Rockets, is there any doubt, Coach, who's going to, be in the finals representing the West?
There's there's no doubt at all. However, then we got to figure out, well, who can give them at least an interesting series. And, Nate Duncan was on the show a little earlier this summer talking about how the Thunder are, uniquely qualified to some degree in certain positions to defend them. Okay. But so we'll have to see how that goes. But they have the ingredients for something interesting. Like, they could be third in the Western Conference, and that gets them, a nice home court advantage in the second round even. And what happens there? Like, they play a seventh game at home and win it. That's the conference finals for them. I think that would be a really successful year for them.
So my thing, like, we keep saying that, and I agree that Paul George, Roberson, maybe even a guy like Josh Houston. They got a lot of long athletes, right? And, Melo is looking pretty good power forward. But it's like, Coach, if you give me a bulletproof vest and you wrap me in pillows and you're out there just in your shirt and your MeUndies and we both get hit by a car, sure, I'm better equipped to get hit by that car. I'm still getting hit by a car. And, I think we're both still we're both creams. So that's my thing as far as teams that are, quote-unquote, equipped to deal with Golden State. Golden State's a car right now. We can put as many layers of clothes on as we want. It's just not really going to help, I think. Okay.
Well, it's funny because we're talking about ingredients for beating Golden State. And it kind of reminds me of another thing where we're using ingredients and recipes, and that's Blue Apron, who you might not know this, but it's October, and they're celebrating their 5th anniversary by bringing back their top 20 recipes from the past 5 years that have been picked by the Blue Apron community. So, do you ever cook at home, James?
Oh, I do. I try to get stuff in the kitchen. It's just I hate shopping, man. So sometimes I eat out a lot.
Oh, well, for you and everybody else that hates shopping, if you get Blue Apron, they deliver the food right to your door. It's amazing kind of stuff when they give you everything perfectly measured out. So when you want to make these easy to understand recipes, you can do it in like 40 minutes or less, sometimes even quicker than that. And they're really awesome. I'm telling you right now, this is going to be like for the bachelors who don't want to go shopping and buy all that stuff and then have half the food go bad, or the people who have families like me who just want to have a home cooked meal and bond with their kids. Hey, my daughter and I make these all the time. We just did a beef and pinto bean chili with cheddar cornbread topping. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
That sounds absolutely delicious. But I mean, that must be really expensive.
You know what? It's funny that you asked that because it really isn't, because you can spend under $10 per person for that meal, and it's as good as anything you're going to get in a restaurant for twice as much. So I really feel like if you go to Blue Apron, you're going to really benefit from that on a lot of different levels. And then you benefit even more because if you go to blueapron.com/Coach Nick, you can get $30 off your first meal with free shipping. $30. That's a great deal to get you going, and I guarantee you're going to love it.
Well, you know what? I think I'm in. What's that website again?
It's blueapron.com/Coach Nick. $30 off your first meal. And let me just give you the tagline because it says here, Blue Apron, a better way to cook. And it really is. So that's the recipes I'm talking about in the kitchen. Now let's get back to what we were talking about with the NBA because What else should we talk about here? We have a lot of things going on. Did you happen to hear that the Porzingis, Wally Z, ripping on him when their mic was still hot?
Yeah, and this is it's crazy how the NBA is happening fast and faster. It seems like players and fans and not players, I'm sorry, but fans and even media guys put people on a pedestal just to tear them down, right? It kind of sucks because Porzingis was just a relative unknown just a couple years ago when he was drafted, right? He was booed in New York. He showed this great potential, and it sucks because it's more about what people expect of him than anything he's done. Because I think he's been fine. His development's been kind of slow, and I think that's a lot to do with the environment in New York, right? They weren't very conducive to a young player being good when he's sitting behind, Derrick Rose is taking more shots than him. But we're to the point now where the season hasn't even started yet, and he's being ripped by the color commentators because he's not dominating, and it sucks. It's really terrible. But I think he's a fine player, and in the right hands on the right team, he could be franchise changing, and the pressure's on him now as a Knick.
Right. Well, here's the stupid thing. Let's call out Wally Szczerbiak for a second because, frankly, he's my age, and so plus minus to him means like back then we thought that was a really important stat that like was not noisy at all, and it is. So that's one thing because that's what he was calling him out for, like a negative 20 in the first half. The other thing was he had a hip injury. The dude isn't running very well. He's in pain. He didn't play the second half because of it. And they, of all people, should have known that. So that's another problem with this whole thing. And the funny thing is with all these hot mics, with the other one who has DVRs, that would never have gotten recorded. No one would have remembered it, who noticed it, whatever. And here we are on that end, too. So I also feel like there's some of that, like, a player from a different era who doesn't maybe necessarily understand completely what these stats mean anymore. Plus minus, we got to move along. We got to find something a lot better than that.
Right, because, we all know that plus minus, single game plus minus, it can be an aberration, right? Like, yeah. I could be having a great game, and guess what? I'm on the court when the other team goes on a 12-0 run, and I'm not shooting the ball, and all of a sudden my plus minus is in the crapper.
Yeah.
It's in the wrong hands, any stat can seem bad.
Yeah, and by the way, I use it sometimes, and a lot of times, like I'll see a guy who's playing really bad, he's not boxing out, he's getting scored on, he's breaking up shots, and I'll look at the plus minus, and it's bad, let's just say, and that sort of at least gives you an indication, but it starts with the eyeballs and looking at what they're doing. But you're right, there's too much noise going on in there for that to be a significant thing, and it's just kind of silly for that kind of take, especially even in the preseason, because it's like they really sounded like disappointed, like come on, man, what's wrong with you? How can you not be out there dominating? I don't know. But meanwhile, we see Russ just taking Jokic's head off of a screen, Jokic trying to set a screen. He just knocked him off his feet, and they got a flagrant one. And this is the first quarter of the preseason game. So I guess there's probably some sort of happy medium in between those two things.
The thing about Russ was awesome because Russ is in midseason form already. He's a cantankerous, not very happy player all the time, and I love that about him. And call me a hypocrite because people say that Kobe was like the same. Why don't you like Kobe? I just don't like Kobe. That's all right. But yeah, I guess I'm just curious as to we haven't seen the Knicks. They've been the Knicks. We got to make the playoffs. This is their first time really being in a quote unquote rebuilding mode, and it's good. But in a market like New York, Coach, is that sustainable? What's going to happen this year? Are they going to rip them apart in the media for losing, even though they're built to lose?
Hey, if he can make it there, he can make it anywhere, I suppose, is the song. So, yes, I that's what it's like playing in New York, man. And it's too bad because, not that contributes to why they've been bad for so long, because they have been good and people have been able to thrive there. But, they're going to be bad again this year. I'm anxious to kind of see what they're doing on offense because I do see a little bit more. And that's the other thing that's interesting about what's going on right now in offenses. It really feels like this is the year, this is ground zero for every team embracing the pace and space, 5 out, as much as possible, 3 points, dribble handoff around the perimeter. They're all sort of, the style seems to be kind of getting homogenized here. And I wonder what that's going to mean toward, for fans and what it's going to be like as we move forward into this, watching the game. Is it going to end up kind of being boring?
No, see, Coach, the pace and space revolution is here, but we have the teams like the Timberwolves, right, who are still kind of classically big with Carlton Towns and Gorgie Dang and, Todd Gibson. You got teams like the Pelicans with Boogie and Brow, and sure, they both stretch the floor a little bit, but they're still, too big, man. Even a team like the Memphis Grizzlies they're going modern, but Marc Gasol's still their best or second best player, and he's a throwback center. A team like the Heat, sure, the Heat get up and down the floor and they run, but in the middle there's Hassan Whiteside. He's going to get big minutes, and behind him is Bam Adebayo.
Yeah,
Adebayo. Who I almost slipped up on the name. Adebayo, who is he's a big man, but he's not shooting threes. He's going to try to run and dunk everything around the rim. There's only so many players, and every player can't be KD and Russ, right? So that's why the team like OKC exists with Westbrook, and he's definitely not a modern center. He's not pacing and spacing. There's only so much to go around, and sure, for every Houston, there's going to be a Pelicans.
Yeah, right. Oh, no, okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, we'll have to see, because I need to break down those teams as well, because Memphis is like that as well, where they don't quite do the same kind of, pin downs on the weak side, a dribble hand up on the other side. I mean, they're all kind of doing some version of like what the Warriors are trying to do. Whether or not they're successful at it, whether or not they have the personnel to do it, to me, what I'm seeing, though, is like they are just simply doing a lot of the same actions. And you're right, there's a lot of different, options out of these different things. So each team will have their own subtle shades of how they want to do it. So I'm just kind of throwing it out there. It's curious to me to see how that's going to, play out as we move into the future, because it might not even be obvious even to like the regular fan that it's the same kind of actions over and over again from both teams, but it might sort of intrinsically seep in where they're like, I don't know, there's something missing. But again, we'll have to find out, and that's where the fast breaks come in too, because those are always different and always that's the Jazz. And as long as we keep that, then we should have a lot of variation. So something to watch for at the very least.
Well, and here's the thing: you're absolutely right that right now it's become a very copycat league. Shoot a lot of threes, get to the rim. It's not going to change unless something changes with Golden State, as far as do they break up that team, that core anytime soon? And it's kind of scary though, because Klay Thompson already came out and said he's willing to take less when his contract's up, and his time to renegotiate in 2019, I think. So, I mean, the league should be kind of worried that they're going to be dominated for a long time. Hey, Coach, real quick, some more details about Embiid's contract came up. It's a 35-page contract, and there's very specific wording about if he suffers a specific catastrophic injury. So across the last 4 seasons, each of the final 4 seasons, according to ESPN.com, ending with the 2022-2023 season, the Sixers could waive Embiid for financial benefit if he's lost because of a contractually agreed upon injury that causes him to miss 25 or more regular season games if he plays less than 1,650 minutes.
Okay. So that's good. That puts some safeguards in there, at least financially for them, where it doesn't kill them if he ends up going down. I like that. And then, by the way, and if he does meet those other criteria, then he's a good deal, because those are all those will be great numbers that he meets.
Right. So it says only in past problem areas, so his feet and his back. If he misses those, 25 feet, yeah. Otherwise, like I say, he breaks a wrist or has a knee injury.
Yeah, right.
Then they can't waive him for cost benefit. So that's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, his agent, and the front office I'm sure they're eyeing each other from across that, that red line there, trying to figure out who's going to get closer to it. So, I don't know. I feel like, that's going to end up being, I want to be positive about this, because I think we both love him so much and love the way he plays, and B, he's just a great kid. He's just really funny, and he's got a great sense of humor and a great way about him on the court. I just, let's just pretend that it's going to all go well. He'll make his money. They'll be good. And maybe even really good. I mean, I don't know. I mean, their ceiling is probably 8th in the conference ultimately this year.
Ooh, that's their ceiling, even if he plays 60 games, 65.
Okay, I don't know. I mean, 6th. What do you? I mean, that's are they going to improve 35 games?
I mean, he's really, really good. It's hard for me to gauge it, and the East changed so much. So. I'd say 6 to 8, I guess. Yeah,
all right. I'll give him. I could say maybe 6 is the highest. So yeah, we could kind of get to that far, but I don't know. We'll have to see. What else? Anything else you want to wrap up with about the NBA?
Just real quick, let's talk a quick bit about how much starting matters to these players in the NBA. A big thing was made about when Dwayne Wade came to Cleveland, when he's come off the bench, and that was a topic of discussion amongst the NBA Twitterati. And they already announced he's going to be the starter, and people are saying he's being selfish. As a veteran player like Dwayne Wade, and he still averaged 18, 4 and 4 last year, whatever it is. It's not just a matter of respect and pride from both sides, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think he's selfish for not taking the bench role?
Well, here's what's funny. Just really briefly, I was looking through Twitter, and people were sending me clips of him in the game like a few days ago where it looked bad, man. I mean, like he went to the hole a couple times, ended up on his butt with like there was no call, just wildly missed shots, couldn't elevate. And I was like, this is going to be really bad. But then he comes down the court a final time and like does a reverse dunk, and like was like, whoa, where did that come from? It might have even been like off one leg too. So. I don't know. I mean, because you're right. Even if he starts, he's still only going to play, right, 24 minutes a game, 25, right?
Maybe. I mean, you would hope so.
So they're going to give him his 6 minutes in the first quarter, 6 minutes in the third. That's 12. Then they'll sprinkle him at the end of the second quarter for 5 minutes. That's 17. Then he'll get the last 7 minutes of the game. I can't see him playing that much more than that, and they shouldn't play him much more than that. If they do, then that tells you that they're really going to struggle to compete, which seems hard to believe when you have LeBron, the team in the East. But I think you're right. I think that his best position is definitely off the bench, without question. I also knew that he probably wouldn't take that. Right? Like he's like, no, I'm a starter. So, do you think it's possible that if it's not going well for the first 15 games, that he'll say, you know what, you're right, I need to come off the bench?
I could definitely see him being talked into it, right? If they're losing, and the coach can go to him and say, "Hey, it's not because you're playing poorly. We need your production when LeBron takes a seat." So I can see that, and they try to sell him on the Manu Ginobili role. But I just know that I understand, like for players, that's a big deal, man. It's easy for us to say, like someone made the hypothetical that DeMar DeRozan was better served to come off the bench in Toronto, and it's ridiculous, right? To me, it's ridiculous for the simple fact that he's shown that he's an all-NBA type player, and you can say what you want about his plus minus on off. I mean, just stagger him. You can't bring a certain. We want ego and personality not to matter, but they matter when you're dealing with a team concept, right? And so you can't tell a player like Dwayne Wade to come off the bench. You can't tell a player like Carmelo. You just can't do it because then you start dealing with the chemistry issues.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is.
But either way, though, you have to. Okay. Given the benefit of the doubt, see how it goes. So you have to start the season as a starter with him, and then you hope that like if it ain't working and you can tell that it would be much better off the bench, you have to hope that he'd be the professional and say, yeah, sure, no problem. And I don't know. I'm having trouble picturing with Dwayne Wade what he would do in that situation, and so I don't know him personally, but certainly. You kind of have to wonder. So basically, you can picture that scene in your head of Lou going to him or LeBron, whoever it's going to be, and saying, "Man, we need you off the bench." You can picture that scenario where he'd be like, "Sure, no problem, let's do it."
No, I mean LeBron would have to massage his ego, right? LeBron would have to talk to him and be like, "Hey, man, especially coming from LeBron, I think he would listen, right? If coming from LeBron, he would let him come out and say, "Hey, man, this is my choice." Dwayne Wade, the story would be Dwayne Wade went to Coach Lou and says, "Hey, you know what? Let's change things up. I'm willing to come off the bench," and that's how they would probably frame it.
Okay. Well, by the way, I don't think that would ever happen, though. I don't think Dwayne Wade would ever do that. I think they'd have to go to him.
Oh no. He wouldn't really do it. That's how they would frame it.
Yeah, okay. That's good. That's smart. Right. They go say, you know what, we'll pretend that was your idea and whatever. Yeah, you'll be look like the big guy. Okay, I can dig that. I mean, that's really, are you like, I didn't know you were in politics.
I mean, but you know what? Honestly, a lot of the NBA stuff that we talk about and we see, it is politics. It's about, the hierarchy and the pecking order. It's real. Didn't Wade say it himself when LeBron got to Miami? Year 2 went so much better because he took a step back and was able to say, "LeBron, this is your team, and I'm here to help." So it takes it takes a little ego massaging. That's what's so good about Phil Jackson, right? He can control big time egos and get guys to play together. So yeah, it's a big thing.
Well, we'll have to see. I don't think Tyronn Lue is that guy. I think what they were lucky to have is guys like Richard Jefferson and Channing Frye. Any other Arizona Wildcats, whoever else they needed, they had those veterans who could really, make sure that all was in order as well. Because without that, I wonder how that works in the dynamic. And one day, maybe there'll be a tell-all book on that as well. And they throw David Blatt in that in a couple chapters too. I'd like to know the whole thing. So anyhow, but you're right. It's certainly a lot of politics, and we just out of curiosity, taking a knee. I think thoughts on that. And what might happen?
I would love to see certain, some of the big name players, especially. I'd love to see them at least once or twice, or even if they want to run with it for the whole season. I would love to see it. I do understand that, which is really strange to me. It's kind of odd that Silver had already came out and and made it clear that they're supposed to stand, right? As progressive as the NBA has been about a lot of these things, it's really odd for him to already come out and try to nip it in the bud. But yes, I mean, if the players get together as a team or individuals want to do it, I would be all for it, because I really believe that Kaepernick has started a very important conversation, and I would like to see star players keep it going.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they really came down on the players if they wanted to do it. But you're right. And I looked at it again because I was kind of surprised by Adam Silver's response in the beginning. And again, it kind of just felt like he's like, well, it does say in the rules that you're supposed to stand. Like, that's how I kind of almost read it the second and third time I looked at it. So, they've loosened up on the rules about dress code a little bit, and so it's possible that they could be, they can choose what to enforce in that rule book. That's the other thing. So we'll have to find out. It isn't that cut and dry to me that instant violation, instant fine or whatever. But I don't know. Either way, it's an important point. Jamele Hill is now suspended for making another point about stuff like that. It's kind of crazy what's going on. That's why it makes me glad that I don't work for some huge conglomeration or some big corporation. Yeah,
I'm really a bit disappointed with how ESPN handled the Jamele Hill situations. I feel like now she has a target on her back, and for them to suspend her for from what they're saying this time, it's for inciting people to boycott Jerry Jones' Cowboys. If a journalist can't tell the people how to show their displeasure, if a journalist gets suspended for doing that, then we are going down, I think, a slippery slope here in the U.S., and it kind of worries me.
Right. I mean, listen, she was warned apparently, and because of the couple weeks ago stuff. So I kind of get it, and maybe if she had waited 3 months, it wouldn't have been as big of a deal. But then again, she shouldn't have to wait when there's, the point was, is certainly valid. So, it's a problem. And that's what you do when you sign that contract to work for, the mothership. Bill Simmons can tell you about it in a different way. And now Jamele Hill can tell you about it, and some others. So it's like, that is the problem. That's why I kind of like, what we got going over here, because, hey, you can say whatever. Go ahead and say whatever you like on Twitter, and no one's going to say anything to you about that. In fact, I'd encourage it, and I encourage anybody else at ESPN to do the same.
Well, we appreciate it over here, Coach.
No problem. And by the way, I have just for the FYI for all everyone listening, it doesn't matter. I have no jurisdiction over anybody that contributes to bballbreakdown.com anyway. But anyhow, interesting conversation. Perhaps we can even have a podcast on that. Maybe Jamele Hill will want to come on and talk about it too. That would be nice. So we'll have to see if we can't to get some more on that thing. I think it'd be worthwhile to have a full discussion about that and even go into the history of it, because there's even some more NBA stuff as well with Mahmoud Aruf doing that back in the 90s and actually getting kind of like he got Kaepernick. He didn't play much in the NBA after that, even though he was still really good.
For sure. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf had to go overseas and play for years. His house was vandalized. It's a sad tale and a sad story. And I mean, you know what? America will never get to where it's supposed to be if we never have those conversations and we never address that elephant in the room. So let's hope that the players stand strong and keep it going. And it's up to us as writers, and it's up to us as fans to also support that.
Yeah, and this should be clear what we're talking about. It's for you and I think it's clear what they're doing and why they're doing it as far as protesting police violence against people of color, as opposed to anything that has to do with the flag or our troops. And everybody I've ever talked to, who's been in the military is like, no, we fight so that you have that option, you have the right to protest if you want to, and that's where we're coming from, and it's nothing to do about the flag or the troops or the country. As it,
so Coach, I'm a veteran myself. I did over 10 years in the Navy, and sure, there's going to be people in the military because the military is just a cross section of America. There are people in the military who are racist, and there are people in the military who will say stuff like, the players are doing something disrespectful at my service. There are people like that, but I think on the whole, we serve to uphold the Constitution, not to protect a piece of cloth. And while it's we know what the flag symbolizes, it also, to other people, which means to the athletes of color and people of color, it symbolizes inequality, right? Because the country is built on the backs of slavery and discrimination, and we're at a better place now than we ever were, but it can be better, and we should all want it to be better. So the fact that it's not about disrespecting the flag. A protest is meant to make people uncomfortable and to make people take notice, and that's what it has to be. And I hope that. I don't know. At least we're still talking about it. So Kaepernick's he's out of the job, but he started something that's not going to go away anytime soon.
I agree, and good, and and it's also just exposing a lot of the politicians out there for who they really are, and some of it's pretty despicable. But let's finish this up because I don't want to take up too much more time of your time tonight. I gotta go pick up my daughter from dance. So again, James, thanks for coming on, breaking this stuff down. Every Wednesday, join us now that the season's upon us. We will do this on the regular, and don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, another channel, your conversation. You in? Are you in, James?
Coach, I'm in.